What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today, another guide for you guys. It's the Blood Nova Necromancer. It's so much fun. Everything on the screen just dies in a pool of blood. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, this is without question the #1 most requested build guide I've gotten. After every video guide that I've made, I get a comment in the section below, multiple comments, messages on YouTube saying, Fluff, please make Blood Nova work in a build. But after trying countless item combinations, we finally landed on something that's actually really fast and great from ability without even using Ingion. So, the skills. Our main damage dealer here, guys, is Death Nova with Blood Nova. We are using the trag'oul's 6-piece here. So basically, skills that cost health are kind of known as blood skills, and they get more damage from your trag'oul's 6-piece, which says you deal 3,300% increased damage. So again, guys, Death Nova, life spending ability, tons of damage coming from this. How else do we juice it up? Well, we're using trag'oul's Corroded Fang. This one's pretty crazy. Now, this says the Cursed Scythe rune from Grim Scythe now has a chance, 100% chance to apply a curse. We don't care about that effect. And you deal up to 200% increased damage to cursed enemies. Now, I get this question all the time, guys. You're using trag'oul's Corroded Fang, but you don't have Grim Scythe on your bar. Guys, you don't need to use Grim Scythe to get the secondary effect of trag'oul's Corroded Fang. Enemies just need to be cursed. That's it. That'll get you that 200% damage multiplier. Now, how else do we juice this up? We're using Scythe of the Cycle again in the cube. Your secondary skills deal 300% additional damage while bone armor is active, but reduce the remaining duration of bone armor by 4 seconds. So again, guys, really important to watch this duration of the bone armor. You don't want to let this get down all the way, because A, you're going to lose a 300% damage multiplier, B, a lot of your mitigation. Now let's just take a quick moment to look at how badass you look with the poison bone armor on. Okay, moving on. Lastly, we're using Crispin Sentence, just like any Necromancer build ever. We get 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, and we're actually proccing this in 2 ways here, guys, and we'll get into that. And then you deal triple that bonus against enemies afflicted by any other type of control impairing effect, and we're going to use this a lot, guys, mostly for elites. And the last way we're juicing up Death Nova is with Convention of Elements. This is a particularly good ring for the Necromancer because we only have 3 rotations of elements, which makes it effectively much better than basically every other class that uses it. But you can see it looping through all the elements here. It's actually pretty important to memorize that cycle, guys. But yeah, basically we get 200% increased damage to a single element for 4 seconds. When this thing rotates to physical, you are a god. Now let's talk about other skills in order of importance here. We're not using a generator at all. So again, we're going to use Devour with Cannibalize. Why Cannibalize? Because it restores health. And why is that important? Because we are using Requiem Serra Plate. Devour restores an additional 100% essence and life. In addition, when Devour restores essence or life above your maximum, the excess is granted over 3 seconds. Healing that you get from this item is insane. So not only do you get juiced up 100% more from Requiem Serra Plate, then you get juiced up 100% more from using trag'oul's 6-piece, which says your healing from skills is increased by 100%. So this thing's healing you like crazy. On top of this, it also keeps your essence at 100% of the time. And you need essence to cast Blood Novas, guys. Alright, now you might be thinking, alright, so what's the gimmick here, Fluff? I've tried Death Nova before, it just doesn't work. It doesn't do enough damage. Our single target is terrible. What's the gimmick here? Well, it's a few different things here, guys. One, we're using Simulacrum to deal with Juggernauts, high health elites, Rift Guardians. Now what does Simulacrum do, guys? Basically makes a clone of you. It will basically cast Death Nova every single time you do. Now, we've chosen the rune Cursed Form here, which says while active, your curse skills now apply all 3 curses. And guess what, guys? We're running Aura Frailty here. So everything that's in our aura of curse will get all 3 base effect curses. You're going to get your Leech, which cursed enemies heal the attacker for 2% health. And you're going to get the base rune of Decrepify, which, as you guys know, reduces enemy movement speed and reduces their damage by 30%. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's great in theory, but obviously Simulacrum, it's a huge cooldown. The guys only last 15 seconds. Holy shit. You might be thinking, well, that's great in theory, but Simulacrum will only last 15 seconds, and it's on a 120-second cooldown timer, so this, triple curse effect isn't going to last. Well, that would be incorrect, because we're actually using a necklace we haven't used in any of our builds. It's called Haunted Visions. What does Haunted Vision do? Basically doubles the duration of Simulacrum at the cost of 5% max health per second. That's going to take our 15-second Simulacrum and change it into 30 seconds. So again, you're thinking, great, it lasts 30 seconds instead of 15 seconds. Well, Guys, our cooldown is maxed, which leads me into some of the other gear, guys, and the stats you're trying to roll for. Now, this will not be an easy build to gear for, okay? You're going to need max cooldown on every slot, and I mean every slot. You're going to have cooldown on your shoulders. You're going to have cooldown on your gloves. You're going to have a diamond in your helmet. You're going to run a dream rolled convention or even something just with cooldown on it. You're going to have obsidian ring of the zodiac, which is another 8 cooldown. You're going to have 10 cooldown on your weapon. You're going to have 8 cooldown on your offhand. And of course, that's going to juice up our cooldown to a massive 52.73%. So obviously, Simulacrum is going to come back up a lot more frequently because of this, but we're not done there, guys. We are using Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, and guess what? Our main damage dealer here is a spender. So with every cast of Blood Nova, you're ticking down the cooldown of Simulacrum. We're also using Goguk of Swiftness here, guys, which will give us 15% cooldown reduction, as well as dodge and attack speed, which are both actually pretty nice in this build. But what does this mean? Between Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, max cooldown on every piece of gear, Goguk of Swiftness, you will have 100% uptime of Simulacrum. So guess what? You're going to have the base effect of all 3 curses 100% of the time in this build. It's hard not to sound like an infomercial here, guys, but it doesn't stop there. There's more. Because enemies will be affected by all 3 curses, this allows you to wear Dainty's Binding, because enemies will in fact be afflicted with Decrepify. Also means that enemies will always be procced by Crispin's Sentence, because the Decrepify will always be on the mobs. You're basically gaining Aura of Frailty for all 3 curses. And how cool is that, guys? Other skills, again, we're using Blood Rush here, guys. It is a trag'oul's build, and a 2-piece says Blood Rush gains the effect of every rune. So every time you Blood Rush, you get more armor. You heal for 2%, which is actually 4% because of trag'oul's set. You leave a corpse behind, which you can devour. It doesn't hurt you to Blood Rush, and you get 2 charges. And lastly, we're using Bone Armor. 1, again, because we're using Scythe of the Cycle, which requires Bone Armor to be active to get that 300% damage multiplier. And 2, we can actively decide when we proc this triple damage bonus from Crispin. So again, guys, you want to make sure on elite packs you are using Bone Armor, get them stunned, and then start going to town on them with some Blood Novas. You're going to see your damage just go off the charts. Now I'll touch on a couple other really nice synergies here. You're using a shield, which does give you about 2k armor. We are using Standalone, which gives you 100% more armor. And then we're also using Potency on the Blood Rush because, I mean, we get all the runes, so you get even more armor. Now we've chosen a lidless wall here because it's basically an amazing stat stick. You can roll elemental damage, you can roll intelligence, you can roll crit chance, and cooldown reduction. A great shield. The bracers, no surprise, basically just like every other build that I make, we're using Nemesis, again with physical damage. All our runes are dealing physical damage here besides Bone Armor, but Bone Armor is not a source of our damage. We're just using it to stun and to proc Scythe of the Circle. And then, of course, on the necklace, if you can get physical again, that's great. So just between these 3 items, we get 60% elemental damage, which actually goes a long way. Now, for statting here, guys, just like we said before, every piece that can roll cooldown must. That's going to be your number 1 priority. Your number 2 priority is obviously get crit damage absolutely everywhere you can. We're not going to go piece by piece here, guys. The only big thing here is on the boots, you can roll Death Nova damage. You can actually roll it on your helmet too, but I'm not sure if you could sacrifice that vitality. That's your guys' call. Now for the gems, again, we're using Trapped, just like every build ever. We're using Goguk of Swiftness to bring our attack speed up, our cooldown up, and then finally we're using Bane of the Powerful, and this is actually a really nice gem in this particular build because, again, the only area where this kind of suffers is single target damage, and this really juices up our single target damage against Rift Guardians and Juggernauts. For passives, we're running Blood as Power. This is vital to the cooldown of Simulacrum. You will be spending the crap out of your life pool with Blood Nova. This effect will take place basically every rotation of Simulacrum. This again ensures it will be up 100% of the time. This one's a must. We're using Standalone, again, like I said, a lot of synergy in this build. No pets, so we get 100% armor. Then we're using Final Service. DI is really nice here, guys. And lastly, we're using Spreading Malediction. You're not going to get a ton of damage out of this, but there's really nothing better to run here. Again, guys, if Fueled by Death was working, this would be the last choice, but it's not. This will definitely contribute to faster clear times. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the play style here for a second. It's not going to be the easiest build to play. It's not as hard as the Corpse Mancer, but it has its nuances. First and foremost, you want to make sure you numlock that Devour with Cannibalize. Now, for autocast to work, you have to tap your force move. You can't hold on it. because as you see, my guy will stop auto casting. That's really important to note with the numlock trick, guys. So if you're like, oh, I can't devour corpses, I'm dying all the time, that's why. Big thing to note here, guys, is how Obsidian Ring of Zodiac works. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. So every time we hit with a Blood Nova, we're going to take the cooldown of one of our skills down by 1 second. Now, ideally, you want this to be Simulacrum. But if you cast Bone Armor, it has a chance to take the cooldown of Bone Armor down. And if you cast Blood Rush, it has a chance to take the cooldown of Blood Rush down. So this kind of gives a delicate balance between how much you want to use Bone Armor. Really just use Bone Armor if A, you think you're going to need it to one-shot a pack of trash, and you're probably going to want to use it on basically every elite pack because you're going to proc that crazy damage off Crisbin. Outside of that, you just want to watch the duration and make sure you don't let it go all the way down. But you don't want to cast Bone Armor more than you have to, because that'll take seconds away from Simulacrum. Now, Blood Rush, on the other hand, is how you get from pack to pack. You know, want to spam this as much as you can. And while you're using Blood Rush, you just cast a couple Blood Novas, and Blood Rush basically comes right back. You're going to move around almost like you have Ingyam here, guys. And you'll see that in the videos above. Another big thing to note here, and I don't know if this is necessarily intended, but this little pet, the Simulacrum, right, that basically does everything I do, it kind of fucks off and does its own thing sometimes. Like, it'll straight be up here doing a Blood Nova on 0 targets whatsoever, like not helping you at all. So a good way to get around this, guys, is to only recast Simulacrum when you're on top of an elite. This makes sure that you get the double Blood Nova for every elite pack. What I like to do is I'll pour it in, I'll cast my Bone Armor to make sure they get stunned, I'll Simulacrum to get 2 me's basically, and then I'll start spamming Blood Nova like a beast. Now, one thing I see people forget all the time is every single time you dash, you're gonna get a corpse on the ground, right? And you can devour those corpses, and that's gonna give you actually a really good amount of healing and essence in this build because we are using that chest piece in the cube. Definitely keep that in mind, guys. Now, another quick thing I wanted to address is I get a lot of comments like, well, you know, that's all fine and dandy. You have 1400 Paragon, which, guys, isn't much, but whatever. But I'd like to see you try this with 0 Paragon. Now, guys, I can see where you're coming from, but this is a build guide. None of these builds are starter guides, okay? These guides are to display how something works when it's optimized. If I was running around with, you know, level 40 gems, 0 Paragon, like no pieces of ancient gear, no one's going to be excited to put this build together because the clear times aren't going to be as fast. Now, if I put it together and show you that it's capable of doing 3 minutes and under, then that gives you something to work for. It's a build guide. Now, on our trag'oul set, we have a few ancients. We actually have a couple pieces that are still non-ancient. We do have a few pieces that are despaired that we've pulled off of other builds. Our trag'ouls is really, really nice. So keep all these things in mind. But again, this is to show you what it can do, not what it does out of the box. This is not a starter build. Now, you guys are more than welcome to come by the stream anytime, and you can ask me to take off Paragon points to see how it perform at your Paragon level. We'll do that for you guys. We did that today with the one-shot Bone Spear. You know, people were saying that it couldn't one-shot unless I had 1400 Paragon, and guys, we took it down to 600 and we still one-shot. But as I say, 1400 Paragon is really not that big of a deal. There's people that farm 1200 Paragon within the first 2 days of a season. Now, if I had 2000, 3000 Paragon, 4000 Paragon, I could completely understand. And that's pretty much going to do it for the build, guys. I've been having so much fun with this build. We're so happy we're finally able to make a Blood Nova build for you guys. It's been my #1 request by far. I want to give a big shout out to Phoenix Pro Gaming for kind of helping me bounce ideas off of him while I was putting this together. Definitely helped me out a lot. Plus, he gave us a nice juicy donation in stream today, and we love him for that. So again, thank you. We'll leave a rift clear as always at the end of this video. GR60, guys. I just do it so you can see the time at the end. If you guys want to keep seeing videos like this come out, any bit of support helps. And a special thanks to everyone that's donated so far. But as always, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions, support me on Patreon. We love you guys. Peace out.